Hi, my name is Angie Wong, and I am president of Legacy PAC. We just came off a huge bus tour across the nation where we went and supported Republican candidates that were running in the midterm elections. We're going to do it again in Georgia for Herschel Walker during his runoff. And of course, we're mobilizing for the big presidential run in 2024. We would love your support and your donations to help us hold the line for the America First agenda and to support the next generation of conservative leaders. So please go to legacy-pac.org. That's legacy-pac.org. Thank you so much for your continued support.
I'm Jared Craig with the Vet Voice. On behalf of Veterans for America First, I have the pleasure of speaking with Cait Corrigan, a former candidate for New York's first congressional district for the U.S. Congress. So, Cait, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me on the show, Jared.
And you're currently in New York.
Yes, I'm from Long Island, New York. And oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, how long have you lived in New York? Have you been there for
Since I
your
was
life?
2 years old, since I was 2 years old, so I'm a true New Yorker, true Long Islander.
Okay. And was this your first race running for U.S. Congress?
That is correct. It was my first time that I ever ran for public office.
Well, I noticed that you had quite a following, and it is astounding once you have the voice and the ear of the people. So many people that the mainstream media would not have you believe exist in New York seem to be following you. And being a conservative in New York City or Long Island, that it's kind of rare to hear about. So I wanted to get your perspective on the midterm elections in New York and across the country from your unique perspective. So please share with our viewers what's been going on in New York or possibly the Arizona races or anything in between.
Definitely. Well, I'm glad that you mentioned, the fact that New York is technically seen as being a large blue state like California. And interestingly enough, we saw in this past election that New York is actually a red state, and it is New York City that brings us down into, the blue insanity that we have here in New York.
So it's a
And
blemish. It's a blue blemish on a red state.
Exactly. And there was a few, other counties upstate that, were blue, but it was a massive red wave that we saw. And I live in New York's, I was from New York's first congressional district, which was currently held by Lee Zeldin. And so it's been a Republican district for quite some time. Long Island is Republican, and we saw that there were all of the seats on Long Island that actually went red. So before the midterms, we had two of the four congressional seats on Long Island were held by Republicans, and we took two other seats on Long Island. And so we saw that this massive red wave came from quite a few different issues: parental rights that were being stripped away from parents, and they were sick and tired of not having a voice in their own children's education. Thirdly was the rise in crime. We've seen that all across New York State. Even Republican Lee Zeldin was attacked on stage in upstate New York during his campaign. I mean, it is completely insane what has been happening in New York State. And one thing that I think is still questionable, obviously we live in a republic and we are free to, question different things that revolve our elections. And in New York, in Suffolk County, which is one of the most Republican counties within New York State, the county where I'm from, the ballots were not counted right away. There was some technical glitch, and so it took hours upon hours to finally see the results from Suffolk County. Meanwhile, we already had like 80% of the polling and results from counties all across New York State. state. So that was very upsetting and frustrating to see that Suffolk County, which is Lee Zeldin, Republican Lee Zeldin's home county, the county where he, represented the people in Congress, we just didn't have any results for a number of hours. Very frustrating. We see that even with what happened in Arizona, where various counties we were just like, well, we don't have all of the results yet. We're still
The
counting them.
Republican counties, right?
Yeah, the
The
Republican.
only place we have trouble, right?
Exactly. It's extremely frustrating. I think moving forward, we have to not so much focus on, oh, well, who's running the next election season, blah, blah, blah. If we do not have these major problems that we have in our elections fixed, then we're not going to see our Republican candidates win.
Well, you brought up initially something about parents having an insight as to what's going on in the schools and the education. Are we talking about critical race theory? Are we talking about the LGBTQ, et cetera, plus, whatever the extra add-ons are, to indoctrinating kids into deviant behavior? Is it indoctrination into some other dogma from the left? What is it in New York that the parents really object to the State Department of Education?
Obviously, we know about the transgenderism agenda, teaching children about sex, when they're 5, 6, 7 years old. It's completely, it's very disturbing seeing what the next generation of America will look like, which is why I actually ran for Congress in the first place. I'm 25 years old now, and I am astonished by what the Gen Z, population of America has been taught, how we've been indoctrinated, and this is not looking good for the future of our country.
Well, other people of your generation, and I have to admit I'm quite a bit older, they seem to be the first generation that I can remember where their answers to their questions all gravitate to the government solving their problems. And to harken back to Ronald Reagan, the scariest thing you should hear is, we're here from the government and we're here to help. That could be the scariest thing. And or otherwise, if the government is the answer, it must have been a real stupid question. And to consolidate that to now the youth who have historically been, leave me alone, give me freedoms, burgeoning adults that are getting out and saying, I'm going to make my own. They really are begging for a leash to be put on. They're begging to have their hands tied and to be spoon-fed the leftist agenda. Could you, I guess, explain, if you could, the rampant nature of that?
Yeah, well, it's really all hypocrisy, because even in college, I went to more of a leftist college, and it became more and more leftist as the years went by. But we were taught all of these things about how, the government has been involved, the US government has been involved in lots of different crimes. And so, the fact that now they put all of their trust into the government and solving all of their problems, even, from student debt relief to solving the pandemic, and not even thinking critically, is actually astonishing. We see, and I think it's very interesting where we have been taught to believe that people who have a college education are somehow extremely intelligent. And we have so many people in my generation that have gone to college. We've gone to college, we've gotten our degrees, and the people in my generation are actually so much more stupid compared to people in higher generations that actually critically think. And I don't say that to be mean or to be rude. It's just the truth. It's just a fact. Well, my mother always taught me that when you read a book, you have to ask yourself, well, who is writing this book? And what was their, what was their point of view at that time when they wrote the book? And perhaps think about somebody else's point of view on the other side. And education is supposed to be about asking questions and trying to find the truth instead of being spoon-fed the truth. And for some reason, it went wrong in our educational system, where people in my generation are like, well, I read it, so it has to be the truth. And it's crazy, because more people now than ever before have all of these fancy degrees and titles behind their name. And for what? If you can't critically think and ask questions, then there's no point of you even having these degrees. Why are these, institutions that supposedly have prestige and honor and respect giving out degrees to people who can't even ask questions?